just wanted to do a review of The Flash Season 2, Episode 15, King Shark. And this is a pretty... And the episode... I don't know what the time gap is between last week's episode and this week's episode. I mean, it just obviously talks about how it starts out with Caitlin still in a state of shock, still traumatized from watching Jay die, and how she's been like emotionally shut off, and Harry tells Barry and Cisco not to say anything to their friends and family about what happened on Earth 2 because they don't want their doppelgangers' lives influencing their the lives of their Earth 1 counterparts. So it starts with Barry narrating, everybody trying to move on with their lives and trying to cope with their experience there, going with their lives and the events of last week's episode. And then, of course, King Shark escaping from Argus facility where he's being fed meat, and the guards and Diggle and Lila are there witnessing it and talking about how they had to clean up Amanda Waller's messes, and how apparently since episode 4, this is the King Shark from Earth 2. He was taken into custody by Argus because apparently Amanda Waller on the side was monitoring and capturing metahumans in hopes of weaponizing their powers. And Diggle and Lila track it to Central City because they know that King Shark kept talking about wanting to Zoom wants the Flash dead, and so they came to warn Barry and company about it, and Barry decides to take it head on just because he just wants to deal with the Earth 2, any Earth 2 Zoom related issues as soon as possible. And while Caitlin and they identify the original identity of Earth 2 of the King Shark as I think Shay Ramot. It's Shay something. Basically, Cisco and Caitlin go to visit the Earth 1. Basically, the Earth 1 version of King Shark's civilian identity died in the particle accelerator explosion, so they go to visit her wife who studies sharks, and Caitlin just acts very demanding towards them, very direct towards the woman, and emotionally detached. And it's something that Cisco keeps noticing and bringing to Caitlin's attention, also Barry's attention, because he's paranoid, because Cisco's paranoid that this is her journey to becoming Killer Frost on their Earth, because of how she's starting to act like Killer Frost from Earth 2. And also, but then of course, Caitlin finally confronts Cisco about it. He confesses that he tells Caitlin about Killer Frost, and she says you're acting so much like her, and he's worried about your psychological well-being, and it says I have to be emotionally detached. I have to be emotionally detached because I feel so much anger and grief that if I give into it, I don't know if I can stop it. And it was a pretty well acted scene. It was very well acted scene on Daniel Panabaker's part. It was this nice little moment between Cisco and Caitlin, which also had to pay off as to a funny moment where Caitlin started trolling Cisco and started acting like Killer Frost and saying oh, I hate that name, and taking on her mannerisms, and she just burst out laughing that she would buy into the idea and said that she would never become Killer Frost. I don't know, part of me hopes that's not true, but because especially since the actress seems to, from what I've seen her in interviews, she liked playing Killer Frost, and he keeps fighting for the idea of wanting to play Killer Frost in Earth 1 or in an alternate future on Legends of Tomorrow. It was an ING interview that she did. I'll put a link in that in the video. Either in the info icon or an annotation. but there's also this moment where there's a friction between Barry and Wally, where Barry's trying to help Wally with an engineering project, and using creating jet engines or vehicles that use that are fueled by alternative energy, and or biodiesel, I think is what he mentioned. And it just seems like, and Barry comes across kind of criticizing Wally's ideas, and almost he's taking over and micromanaging, and Wally takes offense to that, and he kind of storms off. He's about to storm off when the West family is attacked by King Shark, because he can smell the Flash's scent. And so Joe has to convince Iris and Wally to go upstairs just so Barry can go change into his Flash costume and face King Shark, but he's not able to subdue him. He's not really able to subdue him. And at least this moment where even Wally calls him out, where he says where did you run off to? Where did you run off to? Hide under your bed, and calls Barry a coward. And Barry finally breaks down, saying that, stop telling Wally all these great things about me, and confesses about how everything that happened on Earth 2, except for the fact that he admits the fact that Ronnie and Caitlin's doppelgangers were the ones who killed Earth 2 Joe, but he basically tells them all the other details about what he saw, and how even though he was told not to get emotionally sucked up into it, he did, and everything still felt real, even though they were just the doppelgangers. And even leads to a moment later when Diggle tells Flash that even though he was just a war veteran from Afghanistan, he can relate to Barry having the guilt of loss and blaming himself, and don't let that consume him, just use it as motivation, something to motivate you. And so, but in all in all, King Shark was awesome. He was more, I like how his animation looked great. He was able to, be more I guess he wasn't telepathic. Obviously, he was able to talk and interact with other characters, and which is something he had over Gorilla Grodd. And he didn't have a lot of scenes, but he made them count, and definitely more scenes than obviously episode 4. And Barry was able to do something where he's running on water and was able to create this electrified whirlpool to subdue him, and Argus was able to take him back into custody. And Diggle and Lyla didn't really do much other than provide extra muscle for Barry and Diggle acting as moral support. But it was pretty much cool to see see other characters from other shows have this mini crossovers, and of course there was this side plot with Jesse helping out Harry with the formula, and also just kind of jumping on the bandwagon and criticizing how Cisco was setting up the satellites to create electromagnetic impulses or something like that to draw out King Shark. And I'm kind of snickering a bit, and they're both kind of smiling about how annoyed he was. But not much to say about that otherwise. And also Joe just tells Wally why they took Barry in, that he's not perfect, and he loved him like a son where he didn't have anybody, and he loves it. And Joe tells Wally he loves him just as much. It'll be interesting to see how Iris can react to the information, knowing that she and Barry were married on an alternate Earth. They were married in an alternate time, possible future. Personally, I think it's a definite future, because if Barry's mom's death, like explained in an earlier episode, was a fixed point in time, is now a cemented point in time, then the Barry that came back from 2024 was always from a future where he grew up without both of his biological parents and ended up ultimately married Iris. So it'll be interesting to see how she digests that information later on. And overall, definitely a fun episode. Had its like light moment, had its like levity with the Jaws references, and which is also kind of an emotionally heavy episode for especially Barry and Caitlin. Yeah, I say I give the episode I'd say I give it an 8 out of 10. And anyway, it's getting late. It's really getting late. So around this time I'm recording this video, so I'll be uploading my Agent Carter video tomorrow night, hopefully, as well as my Arrow review, and Arrow will be up either tomorrow night or Thursday, and Legend of Tomorrow will be up Thursday, and my reviews for Eddie the Eagle and 999 will be up on Friday. That's the tentative timetable I'm shooting for. So, also, one other thing I actually forgot to mention before I sign off is the fact that the last shot of the episode, at least after Barry gives a speech to the team saying they're going to find a way back to Earth 2 and stop Zoom once and for all and end his reign of terror, and Jay won't die in vain, is that Zoom unmasked himself, and it turns out Zoom was being played by Teddy Sears. So at first you think, okay, maybe it's Hunter Zolomon, and then, okay, so basically the showrunners lied about saying, oh, it's not going to be Hunter Zolomon because he's too obvious, and that's just a comic book thing, and then lo and behold, it is Hunter Zolomon or Teddy Sears, and now apparently there's this Variety article saying that Andrew Kreisberg saying that was the plan from the beginning, that Jay Garrick was going to be Zoom, and he was watching Barry and company, and he was going to know how to be a father figure to Barry and how to be, and deliberately fall in love with Caitlin to fill the holes in their hearts. And it basically them just saying, hey, we're gonna do something completely derivative of last year's plot line with the villain, and yay to lazy writing, pretty much, and which makes the whole thing with Zoom a complete and utter letdown. And they did nothing to really build up the mystery. He's not a very nuanced character, and what was the point? And it just ruins the opportunity. I don't know. It just ruins like the opportunity to do more with Jay Garrick, I guess, like the Hunter Zolomon on Earth 1 down the line, to be a more nuanced character. And if that is Hunter Zolomon, I mean, I have friends who suspected this for a while, like it was going to be like some form of Jay Garrick, or a Jay Garrick from the future, or I don't know. I guess we'll get more answers as time goes on, because I feel like the more I think about this, the more it just makes my head spin. But it's just kind of a fucking letdown that it's not, an Earth 2 version of Henry Allen or Eddie Thawne, something that will kind of pack more of an emotional punch. And oh god, I don't know. This is why I miss Reverse Flash. Like, he was a much better villain, hands down. So what do you guys think of the Zoom reveal? Are you as disappointed as I am? Leave in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe to the video. Let me know what your thoughts are, and yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.